Diva on diva action as Angelina Jolie portrays Maria Callas, arguably the greatest opera star of the 20th century, in Pablo Larraín's Maria.
Yes, this is the third film in a trilogy that the Chilean filmmaker has made, looking at these iconic women and looking at a deeper side of them, but also sort of a fantasy side of them, because I don't think that anyone here is trying to suggest that this is exactly what the inner life of Princess Diana or Jackie Onassis was like. I mean, so now we have Maria Callas added to that. But this feels like maybe the gentlest of the three. There's still like a dream turning into nightmare quality of all of them, but there's almost like a kindness and a generosity with this figure that maybe didn't exist in the previous ones.
An exaltation, an intoxication. I thought the stage itself would burn.
Angelina Jolie is Maria Callas, legendary opera singer, and we are seeing her at the end of her life, and we know this from the very, very beginning. It's like the last week of her life in the 1970s. And there is an intentional blurring in the script from Stephen Knight as far as what is real and what is not.
Yeah.
And it becomes clear eventually what is real and what is not. But we are firmly in her fantasy version of these final days as she is struggling to regain her voice, literally and figuratively.
Right.
And she is isolated in this beautiful Paris apartment, and she's only there with her butler and her maid / cook who's been with her forever. And it's how she is preparing for what she thinks is going to be a final concert, a final recording. She's rehearsing, but also the film jumps around in time quite a bit. I love the way it's edited. It's almost like jazz, the way it like comes in and out of different periods of her life, but it's always easy to follow. As far as she's remembering her greatness. And like the sound design is just thunderous when you see her on stage in costume, just, a packed opera house. There's great energy to those moments, but then her moments of isolation are just as powerful in a quiet way. So it's a lot to sort of bask in as an experience. I don't think, again, that he's trying to tell us what the last days of Maria Callas's life truly were like, but it gives Angelina Jolie this incredibly juicy role as far as her being a preening diva, but there's also a really sharp wisdom to her. And she's so verbal, and she loves word, perhaps because she's been a singer forever. She loves words and like the specificity of them. So there's a whole back and forth with her driver about the difference between must and should. Right? Like the doctor said, I must call him, or I should call him, or I can call him. And things like that reveal how her brain works, and how, even though this is toward the end of her life, there's still like a sharpness there to her and a bite and a wisdom. So I enjoyed this as an experience. Ed Lockman is a cinematographer here who so frequently shoots Todd Haynes films. He shot Far From Heaven and Carol. There's a wonderful switching between like a lush color and then a faded kind of, it almost looks like a faded Technicolor at times. Then like really exquisite black and white. He also shot El Conde. Was it last year? In black and white.
Was it? Yeah, that was also Larraín, right?
Yes. And like that is like, so that is striking for what that represents. So we got to call him out. Also, so much of it is about just Angelina Jolie wearing clothes. Massimo Cantini Perini is your costume designer. And it is everything from these really elaborate costumes she wears on stage for these iconic opera performances, or just like whatever bathrobe she's lounging around in as she's like, going back over like old photographs and old memories. So I enjoyed it as an experience for sure. I think critics who don't like her or don't like this style of filmmaking will say that it seems really self-indulgent, but it's just juicy.
Yeah, I think the more operatic it gets, the better it is. And Jolie is ready to plunge into that. So, I mean, in a literal sense, you see her like as Violetta, as Cho-Cho-san, and like in the Madame Butterfly segment, she is surrounded by women, dressed as geishas holding paper lanterns, and they're in a pouring rainstorm. with an orchestra behind them, like
It's
these
stunning.
just big swings, you know, that the movie is taking, and Jolie is just on board for all of that. And that's a lot more affecting than like the scenes with Aristotle Onassis, which are fine, but that gets us a little more into kind of conventional music biopic territory, and I don't think that's as interesting for this. I love the sweep of this movie when it wants to be sweeping. And did you know that Jolie actually does some of her own singing?
I did not. I thought she was lip syncing the whole time, but doing so very proficiently.
She vocally trained, and so basically they use her voice as the like Callas can't sing anymore voice, basically, and they kind of fade back and forth. So like you'll see her, like she'll be singing with a pianist and it doesn't sound great, but then in her mind she's at La Scala singing to a packed house, and that's Callas booming out and like, you know, delivering at the perfect level, and then it comes back and it's what you're hearing is Jolie's voice. So yeah, I admire her commitment to this. I think the film has some really interesting insight, you know, maybe not as deep as Spencer or Jackie does about like what makes her tick. Like some of the there's like flashbacks where she's singing for the Nazis, and it's kind of like, you know, sure, whatever. She does have a great scene with Valeria Golino as her sister, who's like the one person on earth that she can't like sort of, you know, out diva, you know, and so that's really terrific. It's worth seeing, I think, for that performance, you know, and I think just for the when Larraín and Lockman really go with like, you know, she's walking down a sidewalk in Paris and suddenly all these men who are just passersby surround her and launch into the Anvil chorus, you know. I think, yeah, those are the parts that are the more grandiose this movie gets. I think the better and more effective that it is. Alba Rohrwacher is great as her devoted maid, and Pierfrancesco Favino is the butler. Here's how you know this movie is like taking place in her very sort of like, you know, loopy imagination. Kodi Smit-McPhee plays a British journalist that she insists that she's giving an interview to, and his name is Mandrax. Do you know what Mandrax is?
What's the pill she's taking?
It's what the Europeans called Quaaludes.
Yeah, it's on the bottle.
Yes. So,
and then like, a guy shows up saying, "Hi, my name is Mandrax," and that's how you know like we're in La La Land here.
Right, exactly. But like I think a lot of Americans don't know that term. Okay. So yeah, she's talking to Mr. Quaalude basically, and so, you know, take that for what it's worth. But yeah, I think this movie's great. I've enjoyed all three of these movies. Spencer might be my favorite, but I think they're all terrific.
I like them all too. And there's a tenderness, I think, with the way that Larraín presents her here. And you see that in the relationship with both of her servants in her apartment,
for sure,
who are so deeply devoted to her, but like they also really see her.
Yes.
You know, and they know exactly how to help her. Although she's mostly kind to them. Yeah. But she's not always kind to them. But they know why they need to stay with her. Like with Pierfrancesco Favino in particular, like that's a really loving and tender relationship there. So I enjoyed all of that. Yeah, this is just so well made and just nutty. Stephen Knight wrote this, who we were talking earlier about his career. Like he did Locke.
Yep.
And then also the 100-Foot Journey, and then Serenity, which is bonkers in all the best ways. Yeah. And he also wrote Spencer.
Yeah. And he created Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So, you know, he doesn't have to work at all, but, you know, he does.
That's a career. But I think Jolie's perfect casting for this. When you're thinking of like somebody who can handle the larger than life ego personality.
Yes. You know? Yeah. I think she understands firsthand what it's like to be this woman and to live this life. You know, this is, again, one of those movies where it's a Netflix film. I wish people could see it in a theater because it really the sound design, as you said, is exquisite, and I think you really it really kind of can carry you away if you get to see it that way. But most folks will probably not, unfortunately.
And it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And just for the texture of the clothes and like the lighting when she's walking around Paris, like you just really want to see all that. Anyway,
for sure,
I'm gonna say like an 8.7.
Okay, I'm a 7.5.
Oh, I thought you'd be higher.
Well, you know, I was a 7.5 at Venice, and I saw this movie 3 months ago, so I don't remember now. I think what it was is that I was far more taken with the extravagance of this film than its attempts to kind of capture the quotidian, with the exception of the relationship with the servants. But in any event, I liked it. Go see it. It's really good. Numbers are stupid.